media at SaltySeattle, and today is a beautiful sunny day in Seattle. Can you believe I'm saying that? I can't believe I'm saying that. It's like the third sunny day that we have had in the last 5 months or something. But it's amazing. When we get it nice, we get it really, really nice. And so I decided to bring you guys outside. This is my backyard. I live in the woods outside of the city, and we're gonna cook. We're gonna make some pasta today in my backyard. This is our secret ingredient here that's gonna go into our pasta. We're making gnocchi. I would love it if you guys would shout out in the comments if you know what this secret ingredient is. I'll just kind of hold it up and get it a little bit closer so you can see, but we are going to make pasta out of this, and I will just give you a little hint. There's a reason why I'm wearing gloves when I'm handling it. So I'm just gonna give you kind of a run through of what we are going to do. I'd love to see your guesses come in on this secret ingredient. In addition to making the pasta that we're going to make, which is a gnocchi, which we'll be rolling out right here al fresco. We're also gonna make a sauce, and we're gonna use the wood-fired oven back here to make the sauce. And so we've got all the ingredients ready for that as well. So I'm so excited that you guys are with me and that we're hanging out in the backyard. If you have any problems with volume or anything, just yell at me to speak up and I will do my very best. So I don't know if anybody's guessed the ingredient yet, but let's just talk about it. So this is nettle, otherwise known as stinging nettle, and it has it's similar to spinach in that it's a dark leafy green, but when you go and forage it, and you'll know when you find it because you'll accidentally brush into it with your leg and your leg will start kind of smarting and stinging. It's got these little like stingers on it. It shares actually the same little chemical as fire ants. But the cool thing is that you can cook with it and you can eat it. You just need to blanch it, so put it in a pot of boiling water before you eat it. And so when you go to harvest nettle, if you found your patch, and it does grow almost all over the entire United States, so you can forage this pretty much anywhere. And if you can't, I've actually seen sources online for it if you're really desperate to get it. But you just look for the top of the nettle, the top more tender leaves, and then all that you cook with, all you eat is just the leafy part, so you want to remove those from the stalk. And so I'm going to show you, we are going to kind of skip the blanching step, but you kind of get the idea that that is our raw ingredient there. That's our nettle. And so let me just take these gloves off and go very thoroughly wash my hands, and we're gonna get started on our gnocchi. So over to the hand washing station here. When I set up the kitchen outside, I just get this big sort of vat, fill it with hot water, and use that as my hand washing station so that I can always make sure to be nice and sanitary. And
oh, Jody Nettles just joined us.
Jody Nettles is your name? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow, that's so cool, Jody. So yeah, anybody just joining us now that the secret ingredient is out, we're making nettle gnocchi. And so you saw our nettles over there. Oh, I'm reticent to even touch it. So that's kind of raw. This is what they look like after they have been blanched in boiling salted water for just about 20 seconds. And you can see now with my clean hands, I am touching the nettles. They're completely denatured. There's no stinger at all. One really interesting thing, I was at dinner the other night, and our server, we were talking about nettles, they were serving nettles, and our server actually can walk through a field of nettles and get zero reaction. And so I'm wondering if it's one of those things like cilantro or something where it's a genetic marker, you know, you have it or you don't. But I've never met anybody who didn't get stung by nettles, so I was really surprised. So we're gonna start by making our colored nettle puree. I'm just gonna take about 1/4 of a cup of the nettle, the actual blanched nettle, and put it in the blender along with 2 eggs.
Do you have to cook the nettles before you can eat them?
You do have to cook the nettles before you can eat them. You should boil them, you can fry them. Blanching them is, I think, the easiest way and probably the most common. And also nettles are very commonly used in pasta in Italy, and so for me that's always been my exposure to them. So I just have 2 eggs in here and 1/4 cup of nettle. We brought the blender outside, so I'm just gonna blend this up really quickly. pardon me for that loudness. That's the last machine that we're going to use. Everything else happens over here. And so in this bowl, I have 1 cup of ricotta cheese, and the ricotta cheese has been drained. Oop, and I don't have my good spatula, do I? No. And so it's just 1 cup of ricotta cheese to the 1/4 cups of nettle, of blanched nettle that you saw, and then 2 eggs, and then we're going to add flour to it.
And Hannah and Janae wanted to know what nettles taste like.
So nettles are they're a lot like spinach, and in fact, if you can't find them, you can use any other dark leafy green like spinach or kale. Nettles are just kind of, it's like the difference between ramps or wild onions and domesticated onions. They have kind of a more rich, almost springy flavor. And they're really fun. I mean, if you can find them, I think it's neat to be able to use them. And honestly, most people can find them where they live. So you can see it's that really dark, nice green. And the reason that I didn't puree the ricotta with the nettle and the egg is because if you do, you ruin the light ethereal quality that ricotta brings to the gnocchi. And so this kind of brings me to another point. A lot of people think of gnocchi and they think of potato gnocchi because that's very a common type of gnocchi. You can actually make gnocchi out of many other things. Potato is just one type of gnocchi, and if you use ricotta as a base for your gnocchi, your resulting gnocchi will be really light and really delicate, and those are some of the qualities that I think real gnocchi aficionados look for. So now we're just going to mix in. I started with 1 cup of flour. To those, the quantities that I gave you earlier, you usually wind up using about 1 3/4 or 2 cups. And if you guys are interested in keeping this recipe, one really great way to remember that is to share this video. Then you can go back and refer to it whenever you want. This technique now that I'm showing you in terms of pureeing a coloring ingredient like nettle or any other color ingredient with eggs is something that I do really commonly. I'm coming out with a cookbook and I have over 25 different colors of dough that I make, all from natural ingredients like vegetables, herbs, and superfoods. You can go to my Instagram to see all those different colors, but also to see this technique more detailed. I posted a video yesterday, in fact, showing you 3 different dough colors just from start to finish, answering just kind of absolutely everything that you could ask. So after your dough kind of comes together and forms sort of a cohesive ball, you can dump it out onto your surface like so. Don't want to get my hands too sticky, and continue kneading. So anybody who's ever made fresh pasta knows that you will knead your dough on the surface and you kind of knead it until it's really stiff. Well, the goal with gnocchi is a little bit different. You don't want the dough to be super hard and stiff. You want it to be kind of like lighter and more malleable. So the goal is to add as little flour to it as possible, actually, without it being sticky. So you're just looking to the point where you're beyond the stickiness, but you are not so hard that it's like pasta dough, because the harder it gets, the chewier or tougher your resulting gnocchi will become. And this is true of all types of gnocchi, whether you're talking about potato gnocchi, sweet potato gnocchi, or any of the colored or pureed vegetable gnocchis. So I'm really not going to knead it for too long to that end. So once I have my nice beautiful gnocchi ball there, and you can see it's kind of soft, you know, and light. It's not a big dense piece of pasta dough. Then we are going to cut that into quarters. Let's see, if you look on the inside of those quarters, that beautiful color is still in there. So this is going to be our resulting gnocchi color and texture. And then each of these quarters gets rolled into snakes.
Does the flavor of the nettle come through in the gnocchi?
It does. You can taste it. It's got, that's why I think when you think about a sauce to pair it with, you want to think of something that's going to complement it. It has, well, tons and tons and tons of vitamins and minerals. I just looked it up just to kind of see what it was, you know, how good for you it was. And it's super good for you. It was like A and D and K and iron and all sorts of stuff.
Betsy just posted the number of
health benefits?
Yes,
oh, great.
yeah,
Thank you, Betsy. That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's very good for you. It also has kind of a, I don't know, for the meat eaters among us, if you taste, if your body's like really craving iron, I think sometimes you wind up craving steak. I feel like nettle has that same sort of almost minerality to it. And it, you know, I know that it's a very good way for a vegetarian to actually get some of those nutrients that they might be missing. That meat eaters get from things like red meat from steak and stuff. So yeah, so we're rolling our gnocchi into snakes now, and I'd be happy to take any other questions while we're doing this. I unfortunately can't work as fast as those overhead tasty videos. I do try to work in double time for you guys, but it doesn't, it's real life.
Is the only difference between the gnocchi dough and pasta dough the addition of ricotta?
Well, I mean, since pasta dough can be numerous different things and can be water-based and can be semolina-based and have eggs or not have eggs, I feel like all pasta dough is kind of, you know, unique unto itself, and it's all varying. And while this is a type of pasta, it is a little bit different in the sense that it's more like a dumpling and less like a thick dough. But I will say, though, when you add ricotta to dough, it does give it a lighter quality. So when you're looking at something like a spaghetti or a fettuccine noodle, you want that tensile strength, and you want to be able to have that sort of al dente kind of like bite to it. But when you bite into gnocchi, you don't really want to, you know, it's a big, you know, it's mouth-sized dumpling, and so you don't want to bite into something that is, you know, hard and chunky. So the ricotta cheese really adds a light, pillowy, and fluffy quality to it. And I would say that for people who are making gnocchi for the first time, ricotta gnocchi is going to be a better bet for you. You're going to have a better result than if you attempt to do potato gnocchi, because there are so many mistakes that people make when they're making potato gnocchi for the first time that ricotta gnocchi is actually a lot more forgiving.
Can you use other types of flour?
So I always use 00 flour and in the pasta version, because it is milled very, very finely. Like when you kind of smatter that out into the air, it's just, it's so almost, you know, powdered sugar, like, you know, in its lack of heft, that some of the other flours can be fairly dense, and you don't want to use dense flour when you're making gnocchi, because again, you're looking for that light, pillowy, and fluffy quality. So I would never recommend a higher protein flour like semolina. If you can't get 00 pasta flour, you can use all-purpose flour, but look for an all-purpose flour that's lower in protein. That will result in not having such strong gluten bonds, which is what can make things tough. Okay, so once we have our 4 snakes cut out from our dough, we are going to make those into individual little gnocchi.
Rebecca wants to know if you can buy nettles.
Yeah, Rebecca, I know that I have seen nettles before at the farmer's market, and a friend of mine recently, I guess it was not nettle season where she was, and she was hoping for some nettles, and she was able to find them, I think she said online. So I know that they're out there. I think they're sold similar to spinach, I think also frozen, which might be an interesting way to look for them, because then you would not have to deal with all the craziness of gloves and scissors and, you know, and all that jazz. So we're just going to kind of flour those, and then I'm going to take a pause because I want to discuss our sauce with you guys for just a moment. We're going to get that going here. So we're gonna make, because the nettles are gonna have such a nice strong flavor, we wanna make just a very simple sauce to go with them that's not too complicated or too crazy or intense. And so because we're cooking in the wood-fired oven and it's upwards of 700 degrees right now, these ingredients are going to come together and cook in less than 5 minutes in it. If you're doing this at home in your oven, you'll just crank it to 500, and it'll probably take 15 or 20 minutes. But in here we have the tomatoes, as you can see, and I recommend when you're doing a quick tomato sauce to use a smaller tomato like these that are a little bit bigger than a cherry but a little bit smaller than a mini Roma. And then some olive oil, some balsamic vinegar, a little bit of white wine, and garlic, and a little bit of salt. So that's all that's in here. And so let's come and join me over actually at the wood-fired oven. So come right on in there. Can you see that flame? It's mighty. So when you cook in a wood-fired oven, you sort of push your coals to the back of the oven or the side, and make sure that you have plenty of room for whatever it is that you're cooking. If you were doing pizza, you then throw your pizza right here. But we are going to put our sauce in there. And it probably goes without saying, but if you cook anything in a vessel, use something that's really, really, really high heat, oven safe. So just gonna go in with the sauce, nice and covered up like that.
If you cook that in the oven, would you cover it with a lid as well?
Yeah, if I cook it in the oven, you know, one really cool thing is to actually cook it in a foil packet. I'm gonna wash my hands. You guys get the full experience today. If you cook it in an oven, you can cook it actually just straight in a foil packet if you don't want to dirty a dish, or you can do something in any case that oxygen can't get in, because you want it to kind of like seep and stew in its own juices. Okay, so back to our gnocchi for a few moments here. Let's get some things out of the way. So at this point, there's a couple of different options. We can leave our gnocchi rustic like this. I would say that this is kind of a rustic, you know, more natural look, just keeping it plain. Or we can introduce some grooves to the gnocchi. And I'm just gonna show you how you would introduce those grooves. This is a gnocchi board. My husband made it for me specifically so that I can roll gnocchi and cavatelli and other kinds of rolled pasta against these ridges. You can purchase a gnocchi board. They're less than $10, available online, super accessible. Or you can also use a silicone sushi mat that has the same ridges or grooves. So some options there. And if you don't want to invest in something like this, you can also introduce grooves to your gnocchi by using the tines of a fork. So lots and lots of options. And in order to get the grooves, you just press that and roll it straight onto the board like that. And so you may be wondering, what's the point of the grooves? Are they just aesthetic? And they're actually not just aesthetic. When you want sauce to really cling to something, then you need to have some texture. In fact, a lot of different pastas have, you know, different textures, whether it's a corkscrew or the little ridges that are inside of a bow tie. That texture is both pretty, and it's also there for a practical reason, so that the sauce wraps itself around the pasta and you get a nice comprehensive bite of everything. So we can put some little grooves on our gnocchi again, or we can keep it nice and rustic.
Kathy was curious if the 00 flour has less gluten than all-purpose.
So 00, so Italian flours in general are rated in two different ways. One, how much gluten or protein they have, and then two, how finely milled they are. So 00 refers to how finely milled it is, but you can actually have a 00 flour that has a really high protein content that's finely milled, like pizza flour. For pizza flour, you want a higher protein flour. Or for pasta flour, you're looking for something that's really finely milled, but that has a lower protein content, consequently a lower gluten content. So that's why if you're going to make pasta and you're looking for 00 flour, do note in the back of your mind that all 00 flour is not created equal. Some of it is made for pizza and some of it's made for pasta, and that major difference there is the protein content of the flour. So we'll do a few ridges here. We're gonna just kind of go half and half in the interest of not taking 700 hours of your guys' time. Oh, but I do have one question regarding the wood-fired oven. I hope that this video is coming through for everybody okay, and there's not a super lag because of being outside and the internet and such. But if that is the case and it's coming through okay, I'm wondering if you guys, even though I'm sort of known for pasta, I'm wondering if you guys are interested in learning anything else about being, doing wood-fired cooking, being out here, hanging out in the yard. I think I'm really just looking for an excuse to hang out outside in our fleeting Seattle summer. But if you are interested, definitely leave a comment, let us know. Would love to hear if you, want to hang out for a pizza party, or if there's anything else sort of like outdoor al fresco that you guys would love to learn that is not pasta. So let's get ready to cook some of these.
Julie had a different question. If you could just roll the entire tube of dough on the ridged board before cutting it instead of rolling the cut pieces on the board. Kind of a mass production.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You can't do that. Well, first of all, the boards, this one's a really big one that I made, like my husband made, like personally. Most of the gnocchi boards are like really tiny and skinny, and so it wouldn't work in that instance. You could maybe do it on a silicone sushi mat because it's a little bit, I think they're about 12 inches. But yeah, I mean, I think it's actually still going to be faster to cut it into the snakes using, because you're cutting 4 of the different snakes into the little pieces at a time, so you're getting a high volume production right there, than it would be to try to sort of difficultly and painstakingly roll a tube. But A+ for innovation, and definitely something maybe worth exploring to see if there would be a cool way to do that. So I'm gonna cook most of these, I think, maybe not all. Let's just check our water. Yes, we're good. Okay. So I'm gonna heat that up a little bit. Just boiling salted water, adding salt to the tune of 1 tablespoon per every quart of water, or salty like the sea, or salty like a mermaid's nipple. You can think of it that way. It might help you to remember it better, right? Okay, and then we are gonna go in with our gnocchi. There we go. Okay, and then those take just a few minutes to boil, so I'm gonna head back over to the wood-fired oven. You guys should come and check on the sauce with me. So hot that the hairs on the back of your arm almost stand up, and I don't know if you remember the color of that pot when we put it in, but it's a different color temporarily. Okay, so oh yeah, it's cooking fast.
Is this the type of meal that somebody could cook while camping?
Yeah, I think it would be a really fun camping meal. You could just do a foil packet for the tomato sauce and throw it all together. You could have it even ready, before you go. And then you could make the gnocchi dough ahead of time, or you could make it. I mean, the reality is I'm probably only using about 2 feet of counter space over here. So, while those gnocchi are cooking, just give them a little agitation. I will give you a couple of cooking tips. You can see their greenness really comes out. You don't need to start checking on gnocchi until they float to the surface, but just because they float to the surface does not mean that they're done. You still want to test your gnocchi, and the way that you can test them is by pulling one out and cutting it in half. We're going to do that in just a minute because I will want to test to see if they're done. But yeah, these guys are, they're getting close. So I have this batch here that we cooked earlier, and we'll join those to these, and we'll throw the whole thing back in the wood-fired oven in a moment as well.
What do you have in the pan along with the previous batch of gnocchi?
Oh yes, and so that is further down the process. I will boil the gnocchi, bring them into a pan, and in that pan I have a little bit of butter in there. prior to joining the gnocchi with sauce, I like to make sure that they get a little bit of a crispy edges on the outside. And so to accomplish that, you can either pan fry them if you're inside and you have all your fancy burners and you're inside cooking stuff. Or if you're outside, then we're just going to do the same thing by putting them in our cast iron pan and throwing them back in the wood-fired oven for just a couple of minutes. So make some room over here, and let's test one of these babies. Actually, I'm going to do it on a plate. So they've been floating up at the top for probably 30 seconds or so. So that gives me a good indication that they are probably done. But I just want to cut into it to kind of see. Now, this is something that you should do always. If you see that they're fully cooked through, then you won't see any doughiness at all on the inside of the gnocchi. That one still has, like, I don't know, maybe another 30 seconds just like right in the center. And that gummy doughiness is a lot of times when you hear people say, oh, I don't like gnocchi, it's because of that inside gummy layer. So there's a way to prevent it. It's just to test it. So it's really super easy. So I do think, yeah, we were like 30 seconds out, and that's how long-winded me talked. So I think we can pull these and put them in there. You guys, it's like, I can't even tell you how amazing it is to be out here cooking right now. There's a hummingbird that keeps like zooming over us and giving us little buzzes, and everybody's out just enjoying the beauty. I had 10 baby ducklings, and they just kind of grew up, and I just got them out of the brooder, and the last couple of days have been enjoying the sunshine out in their pasture. So it's really finally gonna be summer. It's amazing. So I'm going to stir this gnocchi, throw it into the wood-fired oven. Happy to answer any questions or address any comments that you guys may have.
Do you always use unsalted butter?
I like to use, I'm not a super butter Nazi about that. I do like to use unsalted butter because I love salt, and in order to really appreciate and savor the salt, then you want to add it yourself, you know, so you can use your own good salt. All right, we're going back in. Yeah, that's coming together. I'm going to take the lid off of that, put the sauce just a little bit further back, and put our gnocchi up front. Lid that for about 30 more seconds or so.
Nancy was curious how long it takes to prep the oven.
How long it takes to prep the wood-fired oven? Is that what you mean, Nancy?
Yeah.
Probably you do. To prep that oven, so when you're cooking pizzas in it, I like to cook the pizzas at around 900 degrees. And so I have to start the oven about, if I really want to get the wood to where it's good and burned down, I usually start the oven about 3 hours before I intend to cook. But it's not really a big deal because you go out, start at, 6 or 8 logs, and then maybe check it in an hour, maybe check it in another hour. It's not a super active thing, so it's not a huge deal. And I like to burn apple wood, and so it's harder wood that's really slow burning and gives like a really nice flavor to everything. So yeah, I would say about that. If you're looking to bring it up to temperature where you'd just be cooking like what we're doing now, casseroles and wood-fired cooking in general, not pizza, and you just need to get it to 500 degrees, you can do that in an hour or less, really.
And Samantha was wondering what kind of dishes you use that are safe for that oven. Is it any oven-safe dish to like 500 degrees, or?
Well, to an extent, we've broken some dishes. You want to use something that's really, good for high heat. So cast iron seems to do really well. Certain clay seems to be okay. I think it's one of those things where you just want to like test the limits of your pan and make sure, or use something that you're totally okay with ruining if if you don't care.
And
so.
any tips for people that may have just joined and missed the first part of the video?
Oh yeah, well, it would be awesome if you went back and watched, and a really cool way to do that is to share this video to your timeline, and so you can go back and see what we made and see why on earth we're hanging out on the outside in the woods in Seattle. Okay, I think I'm going to pull those. They may not quite be ready, but in the interest of your time, we're going to pull them so you can see this dish come all together.
Denise was wondering if the food cooks evenly when you put the various dishes in. Do you have to move them around?
Yeah, you
like,
move
is it
them
harder
around.
in different
You want to
parts?
think about it. You want to think about where things are located. So maybe you can get a shot in there while it's still sizzling, but yeah, that's just like boiling away and going completely crazy because it was like right in the back. Ooh, and it smells so good. Okay, so I have kind of my tomatoes here and my gnocchi here, and actually I'm just gonna, woo! So that kind of caramelizes, and just sort of dump them all together.
It smells amazing.
It smells so good. So good in here. Maybe I would normally probably get rid of a few more of the tomato stems, but see, we're kind of pulling that together, and I think this would be such a fun thing for Memorial Day. It's like you've got your, you know, American cookout style, but our little homage to Italy with our beautiful colors here. So I'm just gonna plate one up to kind of give you guys the full experience here.
And I think Kathy missed when we talked about this earlier, but again, what is the flavor of nettles?
Nettles are really sort of minerally and really, I mean, similar to spinach, but I think like a better intensity, not as bitter, more subtle, and I think, I mean, minerally really is the best way that I can describe them. And so I'm going to take some of these beautiful colors and put them over on our plate here, and then because of that minerally nature of the nettles that compose our gnocchi, I like to use this salt that's called ricotta salata. It has a little bit of a almost tang to it, and the tanginess of it really just is awesome with the minerality of the nettles. And so that was perfect timing for that question, actually, because I have wanted to speak to that point. And so, there you have it. Looks delicious, really pretty colors, really like so fun and blessed to be able to cook outside and hang out in the sunshine. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you soon. And if you'd like to catch up on social media, please visit my Instagram account or my Facebook. My name is Linda and my handle is SaltySeattle. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.